Welcome to Meeting the Inconceivable, a podcast exploring Zen koans, dreams, and the creative life produced by Pacific Zen Institute. Pacific Zen has a legacy of preserving and reimagining the koan tradition to meet our own times. With a lively community of artists, innovators, and seekers of all kinds that extends worldwide, our mission is to create a culture of transformation through meditation, koans, the arts, and conversations about the deepest matters. In this episode, Roshi Tess Beasley speaks about the nature of self-consciousness and how the koan path slowly ferrets out all our strategies for making a separate self that cannot bear the intimacy of awakening. If we imagine we're us, it can be very difficult to stare into someone's eyes for long. But to imagine we're the night sky, for example, suddenly frees us to receive their gaze without so much posture or defense. Taking up several stories of Master Yunmen's own awakening and eventual teaching, Beasley describes how when we forget to be ourselves is when our true nature and place naturally appear. Good morning, everyone. Feels like I was in here earlier this morning and I left for a little while. At my house, we put our kitties in a little room at night, and we don't leave them for very long, but we always have the morning greeting. Every day I open the door and I'm so excited to see them, and they're so excited to see me, and they each have their own little stretch. And one of the kitties, even though he's been with his friend all night, is so excited to see his friend in the morning that he has a special greeting for him. And I feel like somehow, now, even though we're all in silence each morning and each meal and each walking meditation, somehow we just keep greeting each other. It's kind of nice. And brought a couple props. When I was on my way out here, Delta now gives you this little packet and it says someone somewhere. I thought that sounds about right. And you open it up and it tells you who it was made by, someone somewhere, which was Alan in Oaxaca. This time packed my little kit so I could have earplugs and toothbrush and anything else I might need. And last night I had a dream that I had all these black cards and I was selling them. And by the end of the dream, I had no cards. I thought, yeah, that seems about right for where we are in session. There's no means of escape, but somehow I'm here. We're here. I don't need a car. I don't need a vehicle by which to get anywhere else. One of the really amazing things about this session for me, I was noticing yesterday, is a number of people I started working with at the beginning of the pandemic who I hadn't met in person. And perhaps you have noticed this too. You haven't met some of us in person before, and you've been seeing us on Zoom, and we've been seeing you on Zoom. It's this incredibly strange thing to encounter someone in 3D. And like almost incomprehensible, unfathomable. And they look kind of like them. I mean, not like online dating where people only show their best side or something, which happens a lot, I can attest. But it just the dimensionality and the vividness of actually being kind of in proximity, and like how tall was someone and what do they feel like? And I felt like yesterday I took such a long time with all my interviews because I just kind of couldn't get over being with someone. Like, what was it like to just be with them? Somehow this place, retreat itself, lends itself so well to that. But this place in particular, I never notice if it's the specialness of the place or if it's because I only come here on retreat. It always looks so beautiful, but it's like the most stunning birds and flowers and stones and just the vividness of things that creeps forward, the incomprehensible nature. And one of the things I love so much about Alison Craig Atwill, the first painting, is just the up-close vividness of the birds. Birds are strange. You think they're so little and cute, and when you get close to them, they have like all kinds of, they're like dinosaurs. They're sharp and they're clad almost. Like over the winter, I live someplace that's very cold and it was very icy. And I spent so much of the winter just like, how do these little birds make it? Like, how do they do it? They weigh like 3 ounces. And so I looked it up because it was just, keeping me up at night. And they had these special little pumps in their legs so their legs don't get cold. And the little pumps fuel their body. And then the feathers sort of keep their... And I mean, that's just amazing, A. And B, it just this kind of things are woven and interwoven, like they're interwoven with the ice and the snow and the cold, like right into each little tip of their feathers. I think there's something quite nourishing and almost healing about seeing things as they are. Starting to let our filters drop away and see the vast strangeness of the birds or the intricacies of a leaf or the vividness of blue. And so I was saying with people in particular, illness sometimes feels like staring at a person, it's like a cloud. They're always changing. And you can't quite grab hold of them. You can't quite grab hold of yourself. So it's this little, this little cloud of unknowing when you enter into being with another being. And, try it for a minute. Look at someone, anyone. Make them in relative close proximity. Just see how long you can bear it. And see how long you can bear it and see, like hold it for a second. Notice what comes up inside of you. What is it? Anybody just say, what do you notice about what comes up inside of you?
Sadness.
Sadness. Well,
Tenderness.
yes. This reflective.
Intimate. Nature's curiosity needs.
Anybody notice any trepidation? Terror? Thank you. I think it's all true, but the part I'm really interested in is that, like, what is it that we can look at a bird or a leaf or a stone and just fall open? And as soon as another person is involved, it's like, oh, that's so self-conscious. We're so self-conscious. And I mean, imagine me, I'm sitting here with like 40 of you. I'm like, what is that? Like, look at someone again and imagine that you're like the sky, or you're a stone, or you're a bird, or you're a cat. Just try looking again. You're the night sky shining down on someone looking up into you. You're a dog looking up into the face of your owner. You're a child at the playground. What do you notice? Already you can do it for longer. It's interesting. Awe, peace, bounce, vast and wide. So much of charm. If you boil it down, it's basically what's possible if I'm not making a meaning. Which is kind of fun to think about, actually. It doesn't have to be all correct. On things like koans, like what you'd notice in the koan curriculum, is it sort of like ferrets out all your strategies for making a me. I'm going to get mad. I'm going to explain. I'm going to be shy. I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to, like ferrets them all out. And eventually you just realize like they're just strategies. It's fine. Don't even have to feel bad about them. They're just moving through you. That same instinct when I say look at someone and you kind of go, that's so much what happens when we're entering a koan, especially in front of a teacher. Like, what if I get it wrong? What if I don't really get it? What if I won't get it? What if I look stupid? What if I've been kidding myself? What if I thought I got it? Like, it just goes on and on. And it's almost like John talked about this a little bit last night, what we reach for when we feel that level of vulnerability and intimacy. And then strange, quirky things. There's like things the mind does, which is, maybe ask a question or look away or, I don't know, start telling you a story about nothing or, there's all sorts of useful strategies. But there's also like, I have one. I notice this when I go out to dinner with people I don't know very well, or a friend. When I get nervous, I'll take a glass. And it's a way of just breaking the exposure. And sometimes it becomes repetitive, and I just think, stop it. Like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, what are you feeling? What's going on? That you feel the need to keep breaking the intensity. Can we just bear it a little bit? I think that's so much what session is. Can we bear it? I can't bear one more meditation period. Okay, maybe I can. All these other people can do it. Maybe I can. The interesting thing, and I think about this taking part in the gathering thing, is like part of one of the things I like about it is it's not aspirational as a sutra. Like it's a statement on reality. Like we're taking part in the gathering. You don't join it. It's already happening. And in the same way, mostly what we have to contend with then is all the ways that we do this. And even when we're doing that, as there's a woman in our community who's an artist, and she was saying her art is about invisibility because she feels so invisible all the time. And it's like, in a way, by entering that, she gives that a voice. That's what becomes taking part in the gathering, the experience of what it's like to be invisible. And even if you're feeling terror or sad or left out or overwhelmed, it's like, well, then that's that part of the gathering. You're holding that part for us. That's generous of you. We can experience it together. And I think at some level, like you can feel it just sitting here together this morning. There's such a relief in that. We're actually in a circle. We get to be part of one. I still can't get over that sometimes. And the birds are part of it, and the chainsaws are part of it, and Sister Margaret is part of it, and everything. We and the things we perceive are interwoven and not interwoven. This interweaving carries on and on, while each thing stands in its own place. And I think the part that gets that kind of bracing is so much about what we want people to see or don't see. And the paradoxical part of that is usually they can see it anyway. It's just available. But that trying so hard to control it cuts us off from things and cuts us off from, they say, another thing you hear a lot in Chan is learning to trust your own moves, which is really learning to trust your way of being part of things. That my way might be, I don't know, noticing things that other people don't notice, or my way might be noticing who gets left out or not, or if the candles are lit, or how to play music, or it's like we each That's that interweaving and not interweaving while things stand in their own place. We each somehow have a place. So often what happens is you think, oh no, I'm not good enough at that place, or I'm going to do it wrong, or I should have a different one, or someone else could do it better, or that gets quite painful. Because in a way, it pits us against reality. Like reality is sort of constantly making these invitations to us. We kind of go, oh no, 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 no. Not me. You don't want me. Yesterday, you had the music, which some of us liked. And for others of us, it got a little overwhelming. And Michelle had left, and Todd and I both kind of thought, nothing should be done about this. What's going on here? And so I walked out and walked around and walked up and thought, this isn't coming from our property at all. It's not even coming from close to our property. And so I walked down the road, and up the road in a house was a guy standing in his garage, about my size, maybe smaller. And he was standing, he had his garage open, and he had this giant muscle car engine exposed. And he's leaning up against the side of his garage, drinking something. Kind of just looking at me like, yeah, I'm playing my music loud. And I walked up to him and I said, hey, we're having a meditation retreat down there, and I wonder if you would consider turning the music down. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said because it involved a lot of 4-letter words and threats. But he wasn't interested in turning down his music. Put it that way. I looked into his eyes because it's so interesting, especially like having been in session, but just people, when you haven't encountered someone before and you don't know, like, I wasn't sure what I was going to find when I walked up there, if it was going to be kids, if it was going to be, I had no idea. And I looked in his eyes and I just saw that. His pupils were tiny, which tells me he's probably on something. And he just stared at me like, I dare you to try to do something. And I tried a few different things, And it was sort of like that image John gave us the first night of the mosquito and the iron ox. It was like, and in a way, the more that I was hoping or trying to get him to do it, the more he felt like, I gotcha. I can do this, and you can't stop me. And so I finally said, thank you very much. Have a nice day. And he said, I hope you all find some inner peace. Thank you very much. And I thought, that's what it feels to be a self against the world, right? Like there was not an inch of room to connect to, like he was hell-bent on, like. I was walking down and I thought, me trying to not have him doing that is the same like I'm trying to get my reality how I want it too. So fine, fair enough, we'll have music for the afternoon. And Mark said, digging the music this morning, Demons have their place in the gathering too, Like, we were on Land of Medicine Buddha, which is another retreat center we go to. The second morning, it was probably around now in session, and people were really starting to, shit was coming out. And all of a sudden, this smell comes into the temple. What the hell is that, And it turns out they need to mess with the septic, and the septic happens to be right outside the Zendo, and they're poking around in there and doing all this. And there was nothing we could do. So it's like, I guess we'll have this. I guess this is the texture of our retreat. And the interesting thing is, you could tell yesterday it actually was fine. Like, we all kind of settled in. I was kind of grateful for the chainsaw. It just evened it out a little bit, you know? Thanks, chainsaw. Like, thanks, you know, you've got our back. And Sister Margaret went up there and didn't make it onto his property, and he yelled at her too. And I think that's part of taking part in the gathering. It's not like pruning a gathering, you know? It's really welcoming what's here. And the more we're cut off from things, the more terrifying that gets, I think. And I was taught last week, I was talking to someone who just had overwhelming anxiety as we started to talk, like almost couldn't bear to stay in her body, which unfortunately, you know, no getting out of it just yet. And we just tried to stay with it for just a minute. It was so much. And I said to her, you know, what's going on? And this memory immediately came up when she was about 11, and she started to develop self-consciousness, which happens, you know, around that age. And she was getting ready to go to school, and she was so terrified. She almost couldn't get on the bus. And she was panicking, and her parents, for whatever reason, you know, being parents, just didn't see it, couldn't meet it. Her dad tried to say, you know, don't let them disempower you and go, you know, stick up for yourself. And her mom just didn't register what was happening for her. And what happened then was, it's almost like, now I'm afraid, but I'm also alone. Which is so much what happens to us when something becomes too much, especially if it's something we're a little embarrassed or ashamed about. It's like, now I feel, I don't know, now I feel I don't know, I'm being hard on myself, and I feel like I can't tell anyone because I'd be embarrassed. Or I feel really lonely, and I feel like I can't tell anyone because I'm ashamed, or I'd make it worse. Or so it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy to sort of, it just builds on itself and builds on itself to where then I'm so cut off from things, and I'm so kind of drowning in my experience of whatever it is, whatever hardship, that I get more and more removed. And so with her, it just said, can we find a place where it is in your body? She said, there's just a black fall in my stomach. So can we be with that? And she tried, and it was just too much. Her attention just slid off. And I said, all right, so we're going to sit here until, let's just see if there's anywhere that your attention can rest. This is what happens when you get overwhelmed, right? It's like when you look at someone, your attention just starts to scramble because I can't tolerate whatever's happening. And I said, you can close your eyes if you want to. I said, no, self-consciousness is just so much. So she sat there. We sat there for a long time. And finally she opened her eyes, and I said, what happened? And she said, well, at first, just knowing you were watching me was just unbearable. Like, it couldn't stay. It couldn't be here. But finally I sort of, got over that, and all the judgments that I think you must have of me. What I noticed is they couldn't be in my body. But if I could wait just a little while, the birds started to come in, and my dog's snoring started to come in, and my computer humming started to come in, and my chair. And I realized, I'm not in here. I'm everywhere. All these things can somehow hold me when I can't bear it myself. I think that's one of the gifts, in a way, of this practice and doing it together and actually creating containers like this and tolerating going to see a teacher. Is that someone can sometimes, the grass can hold things and carpet can hold things, as John said the other night, and taking turns speaking and even looking at each other. It's like that's the taking part in the gathering. Somehow I don't have to be trapped in here where it gets overwhelming. I get to be all these other places that are beautiful or soft or strange or ancient or alive, or that my attention just moves around and I can find places to rest. And I think koans themselves, you hear so much that the one side of Zen is focus on your koan, penetrate reality, hold it. This all help. It does help to learn how to focus, especially when everything's going a little haywire. But there's also, you can think of it as your koan's just a place for your attention to rest. When you don't know where else to put it, when you don't know where else to go. It's like a friend that just says, here. It can hold your attention for you so that something new might become possible. Well, that's kind of the nice thing we have them. And if we can bear sometimes that self-consciousness of being in whatever we are, really different things can happen. It's almost like we just have to cross outside of that little, booth. I had a dream a little while ago that I had to give a talk at session. I wasn't going to have any time to prepare. I was just going to have to, And not only that, I hadn't taken a shower yet, and the shower was right in the middle of the hall. And I thought, no, come on. But there was a moment in the dream where I just had to okay, I guess I'll shower in the middle of the hall, And when I got into the shower, somehow fully clothed, but, we won't have to worry about that. This family of bobcats entered the shower. And they just started looking at me. And, I completely forgot my self-consciousness. I completely even forgot what I was doing. I just was with these creatures. It didn't seem to matter anymore. And it's like when we give things just a little space, you never know what might appear and come to your aid. John was mentioning Yun Men last night and the moving stones in his garden. These rocks kind of come to our aid a lot. I'm a big fan myself. And there's a kind of funny koan from Yun Men that he stumbles upon a student and he says, "What are you doing?" And the student says, "Oh, I was talking to a rock." And Yun Men says, "Well, did the rock answer?" And the student immediately gets incredibly self-conscious and just closes up, I'm not sure if we're supposed to talk to rocks, so maybe you think I'm weird now. And Yun Men just said, the rock was nodding before you even spoke. It's like that. It's I was at a gathering recently, smaller than this one, and it was a bunch of new people, and everyone's sitting around in a circle, and the self-consciousness was just like, you could just feel everyone like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to say about myself, and people were just grabbing for things, I'm from here, and I'm from, I can help you with yoga. And the woman hosting the gathering, I know a little bit, she had just returned from Morocco to go crystal hunting, which is a whole thing. And apparently, to hunt crystals, you have to have a good heart. This is what the old Moroccan who've been doing it for generations and generations, the crystals can tell if you're greedy or you have ulterior motives and they won't reveal themselves to you. The rock was nodding before you even spoke. But I said to my friend, because she was saying she brought some back, and I said, would you bring them out for us? Like, please save us from what's going on right now. And she said, okay. And so she brought out this whole container. And they were all carefully wrapped, and she started opening them one by one and passing them around. And everything just went dead silent. And people are just enchanted by these. I mean, these are creatures. These are people. These are not, these were beings. And the interesting thing, which I did not know about crystals, is any rock can turn into a crystal with the right conditions, which seemed promising for us and enlightened. And she had many of them, and it was like, what was so interesting was that not only did the self-consciousness, it just evaporated, it was gone, but this incredible intimacy opened up because everyone was they passed them very carefully, and they sort of were in awe together, and everyone's just, oh, did you see this one? Did you see this? And doesn't that make you, suddenly everyone, I think it's kind of like that. If we're not so worried about all this, we can actually connect so much easier. And also what was interesting was that the essence of each person that's standing in her own place naturally just came forward. People revealed who they were without having to think about it, without having had story about it, without anything. You could just feel them. Yun Men himself, and he had been studying for a long time with this guy named Mu Zhou, who was kind of a cranky shoemaker, who somehow ended up taking students, but I don't think really loved having them. And Yun Men would go knock on his door at night. And finally he said, what do you want? And he said, I'm still not clear about myself. Somehow the answer isn't here. And Mu Zhou just slammed the door on him and said, utterly useless stuff. Utterly useless stuff. Not going to figure it out in here. And somehow that way of just being with the world, whether it's rocks or anything else, kind of stayed with Yun Men. Because one of his other, famous koans is on his deathbed. Someone said, what's the entirety of the Buddha's teachings? What's the whole thing? And he just said, say something in response. It's you. It's right here. It's right now. There's nothing else. And it's funny how our moves will appear and then we doubt them. Like yesterday, early morning, we were doing walking meditation, the first session. And somehow I looked up and I realized, oh, we're about to head into the wrong line, and there's going to be Meredith is in front of me, and I just grabbed her shoulders and pivoted her around to the right part of the line. And it was such a natural, sort of loving even response. And it was kind of fun, like just to kind of have that contact and like, oh, that was kind of fun. And then a couple minutes later, I thought, God, I hope that was okay. I hope I didn't offend her. I hope, and I know Meredith, and we're good friends, but I just thought, I don't know. And then I didn't get to talk to her, and I thought, oh, well. And then she came in the afternoon and said, wasn't that fun? The time I was wandering off and you just grabbed me and, come back, Meredith. And how quickly it creeps in, like even with that guy yesterday. I thought later, well, maybe someone else could have gotten him to, turn it down, or maybe I could have thought of something better. It's like, it's incessant. But when we're in things, the right move just arises, just happens. Things talk to us. At the same gathering, there was a cat who's apparently usually very shy, but was up on the counter and just started headbutting me. And I was really excited because I was noticing, I think when I was a kid, the cats were my original koans. Like there were places I could rest my attention that felt still and safe and warm and interesting. And I spent just hours and hours and hours and hours with them. I thought they are kind of the original koans, paradoxical, impossible to tame, but helpful. And this cat was having such a good time with her. She was black and white, and she almost looks like mountains were just drawn on her. She's white on the bottom and black on the top, and then perfectly symmetrical, sort of. And we were having a really good time. And I thought, I'm not sure what else she's after. I'm going to go back to the group. And I went to leave, and she went, I thought, excuse you. And I went back, and she tried to, and I thought, and then she started rubbing on something. I thought, what are you after? And then I happened to look at the thing, and it's full of kitty treats. And she was, And so I went to open them, and she immediately got down on the floor and rolled over. And so we sat, and then I gave her a treat, and she, no, not that one. She wanted the other ones. Okay, so I give her the other treats, and she purrs and eats them and sort of rolls over. And I just thought, things will tell us what they need when we're here, when we're actually connected to things, when we're not pulled back. It's amazing how much information will just reveal itself to us. John mentioned the first night that a lot of people in our community are doing kind of a mini session. They're like tagging along with us in the side chapel. And I've been emailing with them every day about what they're doing and how's it going. And they've been having music from Michael Wilding and poems and sitting. And they're just like thrilled to be along the ride with us. And this morning, so they've been kind of receiving what's going on from them. And this morning, Judy Swan posted a poem that I thought, I think this belongs with us. I say this weaving and interweaving goes on and on and on while each thing stands in its own place. And so the Tony Hovland poem is called The Question. It starts with a quote by the poet Fernando Pessoa. It says, "We are what is missing from the world. Some questions have no answer. Raised, they hang there in the mind like open mouths full of something missing. The great Portuguese poet Pessoa said that the idea of happiness is what makes men permanently sad. The body, imagining the soul, looks ugly to itself. A man hears a word, and the world becomes a place that he misunderstands. So he climbs high into his life, ashamed of all he doesn't know, and refuses to come down. If you could coax him out again, you could tell him, say that anything can be explained. The shape of apples, for example, by their love of travel. Or that the sky is blue because it's an easy color on the eyes. Even the dog chasing its tail has temporarily a center. Even the bird disappearing into his hole knows that the world goes on without it. And Pessoa, that eminently healthy man, that artist who wore a blue wool hat, even on the hottest summer days, simply to toss it at strangers in the street. He liked to see them catch it and grow immediately less strange. I love the man in the garage. Say it a little louder, Holly. I love the man in the garage. Brendan knows him. He moves Johnny Cash. Oh, yeah. He did have pretty good taste in music. Well, if he's chasing you and macing Sister Margaret and still not turning it down. Yeah.
He lives close in the Minitum. You would think that he probably has heard that complaint before.
Apparently not. Which he was just for us, which was sort of, I don't know, kind of just right somehow. He wasn't them. Michelle, yesterday, you probably recall, you said, I have trouble Haley. That was just after that encounter. Best part of it was when I said it, I thought, I'm not sure if that's true or not true. That was the best part of that question you asked us. I thought it doesn't actually matter.
Tess. Yeah, lol. Somebody said, cats are reincarnated Zen masters.
Someone actually told me something very funny recently that they have a cat that they brought back from China, and a friend of theirs who had decided to be a monk who didn't speak any Chinese went to just, like John was saying, he would just go sit in the temples and have no idea what was going on, but he liked it. And they came downstairs one day and he was sitting with the cat talking to it. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm trying to get your cat to receive the Dharma. I said, well, why? He said, well, apparently cats have come back because they suffer greatly. They were human beings and now they suffer greatly. And if they can receive the Dharma, then they can restore themselves as human beings. I thought, now they seem pretty happy as cats. Which is what this woman said.
Go the other way around, yeah.
And the cat just sort of looked up, very cute.
Your story about turning Meredith remind me of being stopped by Todd yesterday as I started to come into the dojo, and Todd was reading Thela and his hand came down like very powerfully. And others felt it as they reported to me. And then Todd came up and he apologized because he was worried somehow it didn't, like you, was that okay? And it was so okay. And it reminded me of the old forum where we were told no eye contact, no social criticism, don't apologize, don't, you after you or anything, just being here in the moment, how powerful that is.
That's a great one. Yeah, and I think I think that's the sort of trusting our own moves, and you can feel it when something's clean. Like, you can feel it when someone's kind of imposing themselves on you or you're imposing yourself on someone else. And you can feel it when something's just, oh, that's just reality. That's just here. And there is a kind of relief almost, even when someone tells you something you don't want to hear, that they're just like, oh, now I don't have to pretend that that's not true anymore. I can just now I can just share it with you. I don't have to be doing this. And I think as we get deeper into retreat and your mind gets quieter, it's true, those moves just arise more often, and you might see the dial back from them still. But you can feel if there's residue or not, and if you're just making the residue up or if it's really there. And I think that discernment, I've been picking colors of white for walls, and it's like, you think white is just white, but it's not. There are like 24 different whites. And at first they just look all the same, but after a while you can just discern, and you start to discern. If I have a little twinge of grabbing or a little twinge of hoping someone would think I'm really good or really smart, or a little like, you just to start getting finer and finer attention. Yeah, it's a relief.
Well, I had an experience with a neighbor that kind of fits in with some of the things you were talking about. I have a gym I can walk to, so I was walking back home into our little neighborhood, and I see this car. I'm just, kind of lost in myself, and all of a sudden I noticed this car coming from right at a high rate of speed. And I decided, I don't think she sees me. I don't think, I'm going to stop. So I stop. And she gets up to me and slams on the brakes, and she looks at me and it's my neighbor that I know that goes to my same gym, and she goes, "Oh," she says, "I'm sorry," and I said, "Oh, okay, that's no problem." So then she makes it to the gym, and my husband was there, and he comes home and he goes, he says, "I heard Deb almost ran over you," and I said, "Yeah," and he says, "Well, she said she was eating a banana," and I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Boy," he says, "you're lucky you didn't get run over." And I said, "Well, if it was my time to go, I guess it was." And then I could imagine an article in the paper that says, "Woman eating banana kills neighbor." You know,
Yeah, and I think the kindness in that is that you saw her, you did the looking. And sometimes, like, we're all the one eating the banana. That's so easy to say, like, idiot wasn't paying attention or something. And it's like, I've been eating it.
it's okay. I did see her, even though she didn't see me.
Yes. Thanks, Karma. Glad you're here.
Well, I'm glad I'm here. And you. Glad you're here.
Jen.
What's really coming in for me is the description of the move that you made with Meredith, and then the later rising of, how'd that feel for her, and all this sort of, what in a way felt like this beautiful confusion of concern and caring, doubt, all these different fuzzy things. And then Todd also, makes the clean move, and then that rises, and it feels as though there's somehow great value in that confusion too, in that there's a caring there, there's a tenderness there for the other person that feels important there. And I think I've always felt like how I'm not standing in my own place when I make that, when I have that. But now it feels like, oh yes, I'm completely standing in my own place when I have that. Down confusion.
Yeah, I think it's like it just floats through. And I think if it starts to obsess you, then that's almost starting to block things out again. But if it just is something that it's like those different whites where I think, what was really happening there? I had an instinct move, and then I have to try to discern all those different points of emotion or reactivity or, I guess almost just reflection, some part of reflection bumbling up. And that, there is a kind of love in that. But also then trusting the feel, because I could then feel, oh, Meredith and I are okay. She didn't scooch her chair away from me for the rest of the day. We're always getting information that I think helps us with that doubt and confusion.
Can I say, if she could have seen my face, because I was chuckling, and I was saying, well, here I am. My head's out there somewhere, and my body's trying. And it's been so helpful to me, when people have gone, no.
To support these episodes or learn more about upcoming programs and retreats at Pacific Zen Institute, visit us at pacificzen.org. You'll find details on John Tarrant's Sunday Talks, our Open Temple morning meditation, and our Zen Luminaries series featuring intimate conversations with scholars, poets, and teachers of koan Zen. Thanks for listening.